Panelists are here already, and I'm going to do an introduction um, very soon so that we can kickstart the session. But before I do that, I am just going to do a quick introduction of um, for those that probably this is your first time of joining this session. You might be wondering what you're doing here, or just the idea behind this series or this session. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of explanation. Then I'm also going to talk about StratPower, that's the organization putting this together. So starting with StratPower, StratPower, as I think as we like to call it, uh, we have been termed as the go-to-market partner for organizations, especially startups uh, within the tech ecosystem, and we've been able to work with organizations in helping them drive anything and everything from operational efficiency down to go-to-market, and we've been able to help organizations go from not just creating plans or strategies, but then executing and implementing these plans. So that is essentially what StratPower does. And we created this founder series because, of course, it directly, or we created this series because it uh, focuses on the people we work with, or the amazing uh, uh, entrepreneurs, founders, specialists, and professionals that we work with. And the session has been created, or the series has been created specifically to help us learn from all leaders that have practical experiences in their fields, particularly in sales. Leaders that have been able to found companies, that have been able to take organizations through, I mean, drive great revenue and drive growth with those organizations. So we bring them on the story for, uh, for them to share their practical experiences. So not just talking theories or just teaching. So that's why we curated it in a panel session structure so that they're able to, it's an interaction. We're able to have a discussion with them, and then you're able to learn and listen to them. You're also able to ask them questions during the session. So we created this series so that people are able to, get to have first-hand experience of what it feels like uh, these business leaders, or how it has been for them, how they've been able to drive all of the growth that they've been able to drive um, in their various industries or in their various organizations. And the series or behind the session, whichever one we want to call it. And I am super excited that we have our amazing panelists here with us today. Um, Thank you so much for joining us. We have our first panelist in person of Mr. Tayo uh, Sowole. I want to believe that I pronounced it well. And we also have Mr. Kolawole Fajimokun. They are joining us today as a panelist. They have a lot of experiences uh, driving revenue and growth, just as I mentioned. So I'll just go through their uh, profiles. For those that are already in the community, I'm sure you have seen you have read it already, but just for those that perhaps you missed it, I'm just going to do a quick run through of our profiles, and we will get started with the session today. So I will start with Tayo Sowole. He is a seasoned business leader and an entrepreneur. He has extensive experience in technology sales. So that's what is called tech sales. And he has been able to do this across Africa. He's currently the revenue leader at Talstack, and then he's also the founder of Thrive Consulting Limited. Before he joined Talstack, and before he started Thrive, he had led the U-Lesson team as the first vice president of sales and distribution at the U-Lesson Education, and he's been able to drive the Pan-African expansion before it became the Chief Strategy Sales Officer, and also ultimately the General Manager at Ulerson. Um, uh, he is also the founder of the Middle Storm program project, which is a company rather, which is a social impact company, and that uses cricket to improve children's lives. And his expertise, goes or spans across entrepreneurship, leading cross-functional teams, investment or investor relations, and then also driving new business development. It's an honor to host here today. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. Moving quickly to Mr. Kolawole so that we can start the session immediately. Mr. Kolawole is a business leader. He has over 16 years of management experience leading and driving strategic for businesses within the banking and fintech space. He has led digital channels management, offline payments, cashless adoption, financial inclusion, business risk management, performance management, and revenue assurance for organizations such as Stanbic IBTC, FCMB Bank, First Bank of Nigeria, and most recently, Moniepoint. He is a dedicated, or is dedicated to leading efforts that ensures that digitization of payments and the creation of financial happiness for millions of businesses and individuals in Nigeria is realized. That's amongst other emerging markets in Africa. Thank you so much, Mr. Kolawole, for joining us today. It's indeed an honor to host you on today's episode of the Founder Series. For joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Israel,
Okay.
for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so we are good to go. Before we continue the session, I'd just like to say that we all have, just like I mentioned already, we all have the opportunity to ask questions. So if you'd like to ask questions during the session, please do not forget, or you can simply just put it in the chat or the comment section so that I'm going to um, say when so that everybody can understand or know when to ask their question. All right, great. We're going to start with me just, we like to get, so how we do it here, we like to just get a quick understanding of how our panelists out there were able to, kickstart their careers, how they got into business, how the journey was like, specifically how they've been able to get into the business world, that they've been able to start, driving, growth and revenue for organizations. So, so Kolawole, I think I'd like to start with you, if you do not mind. Just share with us how you got started, over 16 years ago, and how the journey has been, leading businesses and driving revenue and growth. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much for the honor. Unfortunately, I was not at the first session, right? So it's also my first time joining today. Thank you so much. Yeah, so looking down the line, right? I remember clearly, the priority in the market. Customer trust level, confidence level has gone up significantly. The number of players in the markets has significantly gone up. When we started, it was practically traditional banks, that had the major players in the market. But now, if you look at what is happening, the fintechs are, giving the banks a good run for their money. And yeah, you can look at the success story in Nigerian market today and say, indeed, yeah, we're leading from the front. If you look at payment maturity in Africa, judging from our instant payments, the fact that even if you go to the interstates, interland, the rural areas, you have people with their cards, consummating card transactions, mobile app, you have that everywhere. And I mean, an average Nigeria to an extent, can operate a smartphone, their mobile app, and do basic banking transactions on their own. So I'm happy I've been part of the adoption from, right from the start. And I had that honor of, working with different stakeholders, to deepen card usage, ATM usage, payment gateways, integrating billers, the likes of MultiChoice, GoTV, betting companies, discos, I mean, name it. I had the honor of working with the team, to achieve that. And of course, I joined Moniepoint February 2022, I think the peak of COVID, so to say. And, it was a big shift for me comparing, payments in the conventional banking with, the way the fintechs approached it. So I mean, a lot of learning that I was able to draw from that, and I give it to, the fintechs, looking at what they've been able to do in the market so far. I'm sure with as we progress, if time permits, we will be able to touch on some of those things that stand out for me in the market. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. So we go quickly over to you, Tyre. If you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about how your career started, how you got into revenue, driving revenue and growth, how you got into being a founder, because we have a lot of founders on the call as well. So how you got into being a founder, and how the journey has been being a founder, still driving revenue growth for organizations that you work with as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Israel. Confirm that you can hear me clearly.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So my journey into sales, I think that, like for most people as well, was accidental. I found pretty early though that I had a thing for just helping people solve problems and sort of understanding their needs and their challenges. So when I was in uni, even though I didn't have any design skill, I sold designs. So when there'd be all of those departmental week and hall weeks and faculty weeks, so I would sit with a graphics designer, have the designs done, print one sample, and then go to the excos of the departments and try to get them to adopt my designs. And then I would then pay my graphics guy, make some profits, and then go again. Then during the elections, so that when they got in, I had like prospects to sell to. Like fresh out of uni as well, I met someone who had just come back from the US and was building a physical, where he wanted to build a physical service business in Lagos. And I offered to help. When we built this business, we then realized that it's not enough to just build, right? You have to then get customers to use it. But I was lucky because this person had been in sales for quite some time. His career had been in pharmaceutical sales, actually. So I had the first-hand experience of learning from him, learning how to sell. And we would sort of start from, for those of you who know Yaba well, from the start of Erba Macaulay, we'll also go to all the way down Muritala Mohammed and I kind of, even now, all these years later, I kind of know which businesses were in which building on by Macaulay and around Yaba and Akoka and all of those areas. But that was my first foray into sales. I went from there to e-commerce, to a company called Deal Day. And I had a great time. Essentially, the job to me was not a sales role. It was helping businesses with acquiring customers, and making money as a result of doing that, right? So I went from e-commerce to, well, I did a bunch of e-commerce, and then I went from there to software. So I went to SaaS. Again, brand new company, brand new idea, but I got into selling payroll and HR software when they were not a thing in Nigeria. And I did that for 4 to 5 years. Again, learned sort of like heavy B2B sales, selling to very, very large corporations, also selling to brand new startups. You know, and you could just see the difference. Like you had to modify your style, change your approach depending on the type of customer that you were selling to. One time I had to sell to a company that was present in 47 countries. And
Wow.
and the buying team, the people that are responsible for buying were in different time zones. So I wake up at 2 a.m., speak to somebody in the US, you know, speak, or somebody in Australia, speak to their cybersecurity team. You know, all of that stakeholder mapping just because of the size of the deal. But at that point as well, I sort of started to lead my own team. And so when I went over into from HR and payroll technology to education technology at a company called again at the time the company doing, you know, not a lot in, well, quite a number of revenue, but into SaaS, HR was different. But I think the basics of selling in Nigeria or selling across Africa, as far as you consider it to be, you know, I'm helping, my product helps people achieve XYZ. My product allows people's lives to be better by this much percentage if they use it. I think that those basics always hold true. And if they do, then you can expect to have some success. So yeah, that's what I did. I left EdTech to start Tribe Consulting. And what Tribe Consulting does is it helps software companies across the continent build out their revenue team, scale go-to-market, similar to what StratPal does as well. And we do this just based on our experience of building teams and leading growth across the continent as well. I also lead revenue strategy at Talstack, and Talstack is, again, you can call it EdTech. But what it is professional upskilling. So we work operators, so who have done the things that they are teaching. It knowledge of we need what risk global team how to do it and talking about their experience, you know, on a daily basis or weekly basis. That's what Talstack is. So yeah, that's me, Israel.
Thank you so Thank you so much. Sir. That's an extensive overview of a lot of things. And I am quite excited about the fact that we have um, um, two of you having essentially worked across different industries. So the last session we had some people that were asking questions around fintech, so some founders around fintech. So I want to believe that we have them here today. So I'm sure that they're going to learn a lot from both of you. So now going into the question, we're talking about um, uh, how to drive or how we're able to drive or navigate economic challenges. As a founder, as a business person, or even as that is just working to drive revenue and growth in their organization. And Nigeria right now, as we all know, we're going through a very interesting economic situation. Now, I think I will start from Mr. Kolawole. For you, having worked across the financial sector, where you have first-hand seen how this economic uh, 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 dynamism could play out either in the positive side or even negatively, and how it affects people and how it affects cash flow, how it affects businesses as well. So I want to, from your own perspective, talking about market shift or talking about um, economic situation. What are the or what's the most significant market shift that you has, uh, you know, in your own career or in your experience? And then how have you been able to? How do you think it has affected businesses and their sales strategies? I want us to go down to something eventually, but then I wanted out from just your own experience and perspective. What's the most significant market shift that you've seen, and how it has affected businesses, in the Nigerian ecosystem?
Okay, right. The interesting thing with Nigerian market is peculiar. So it's not
Yeah.
is a deviation from the norm, what we're familiar with, right? Yeah, I'm sure we're all scholars. We spend time studying in different schools. So if you take a look at some of the economic theories, they will tell you, forces of demand and supply, right? So, for example, what is happening in Nigeria today? If inflation rate is going higher by the day, what that signifies is you have so much cash in the circulation, right, chasing few products. But you and me know that that is not the case in the Nigerian market today, right? We don't have a problem of limited products, so to say. If you want to get 1,000 bags of rice today in Nigerian market, you can easily get that. You want to get cement, you can get that. So there's no scarcity, right? So what we see is more of artificial scarcity, so to say. Now, my point is this: we've seen a number of policy somersaults from the regulator in the recent time, the CBN, creating some discussion. If you backtrack to January 2023, for example, when the Naira redesign started, right? People had a lot of frustration accessing their funds in most of the banks. The ATMs, were out of cash. People were stranded. It was difficult for Nigerians to transact then. But because we're a very resilient, people, the response to that, shockingly, was positive, because that compelled people to adopt digital banking, right? So in space of 2-3 months, I saw companies in Nigeria that managed to double their sales, their revenue in space of 2-3 months. I give you a practical example here. I was with Moniepoint in during that time, January 2023, sorry. And I can tell you categorically that the numbers that the company posted in November 2022 in terms of transaction counts, value, acquisition counts, revenue, and all that. That number doubled in February 2023 in space of just 3 months. Space of 3 months now. So that goes to show you the potential in Nigerian market. I mean, I've been to some other markets, Asia, Middle East, North America, Europe. I've never seen, a market that has the kind of potential you find in Nigerian market. Market is, so what we have today is more like we're still scratching the surface. We're scratching the surface because, we still have huge percentage in the market that is still unbanked. Yeah, so yeah, it's getting better, but my point is the challenges that we face as a country, those challenges are creating opportunities for companies to rethink their strategy, to come up with, new products to respond to some of those challenges, and rather than yelling, rather than wallowing in pain, in bitterness, they are getting stronger by the day. Most recently, I was looking at the financial report from the top banks, right? Whether it's GT Bank or First Bank, and despite the hardship, the current hardship, in the market, shockingly, these people are reporting, significant increase in their revenue, their bottom line. And you'll be asking yourself, so where is the money coming from? Of course, they are not picking those money from the tree. Yeah, they are not picking from the tree. Nigerian customers, we complain daily that things are expensive, but the truth is people are still buying those things. People buy food every day. People wear clothes every day. People jump on buses on a daily basis. Because we're fun-loving people, no matter how tight or how bad things are, people still find a way around, living their life, forgetting about their sorrow. And that is what is fueling some of the things we're seeing in the market. So I cannot categorically say, okay, one particular policy, but I've seen a lot of, things that were really meant to silence people, policies that are meant to, mop up cash, in circulation. But at the end of the day, you find out that, we are not perturbed as a people. We continue to, to grow. We continue to, navigate the turbulence. Yes, some companies didn't find it funny because I know in the recent time we saw some multinationals quitting Nigerian markets, right? Most recently, Microsoft. Yeah. So we understand that some of those challenges are also there, but again, I think it's better to just focus on the positive than the negative. So as a business person today, I think the most important thing is when going gets tough, the first thing to do is to go back and review, just take a look at the journey so far, the products, life cycle, or whatever services we're offering, and see how we can innovate, see how we can cut down on our costs, how we can deepen our market penetration, right? Leveraging technology to reach out to millions of people, and of course, partnership, which is something that I've seen companies like the likes of Moniepoint and banks. That's what they leverage to scale. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask that, but I mean, what you thought was able to help these organizations drive it, but you have mentioned that already. So thank you so much for doing everything at once. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Tayo, I want to ask you, for you, you've gained a lot of experience working with SaaS products, working with edtech organizations or companies as well. You've been able to sell education technology products, and you've been able to drive everything for that. Now, in your own experience over the years, what do you think are like times where you had to make significant adaptations to your sales approach because of the economy? I want to believe that the economic situation also does affect the education and technology industry. So, what are the most effective approaches that you feel, or adaptations that you feel have worked in those industries, at least the industries that you work, and how do you think those changes or those adaptations have been able to play out in terms of influencing positive growth progressions?
Thanks, Israel. So I think to where or still are, even because I think that even though there's been some rough times over the last few years, um, the present time is maybe just as rough.
Your network went off. Okay, think about that.
Right, can you confirm that you can hear me clearly?
Yes, yes, yes. Better now.
All right, cool. So I was saying that because a lot of this cost that businesses have now gone up tremendously because of changes in the exchange rates. Businesses are now forced to find a way to sort of balance their books and reduce their losses. And mind you, many technology businesses, especially early stage ones, were already loss making. You get what I'm saying? They were not making profit before. Now this situation has made it even worse. And they now have to think about how to I'm getting some I'm hearing myself, so I'm struggling to concentrate. Can you just mute
Sorry.
everyone?
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so businesses are struggling to sort of balance their books right now. What that means is that a lot of those costs are being passed on to the customer. Now the customer was looking at your product, and it was good to have. It wasn't necessarily it's not something that they can do without. Of course, they're going to start to look for other alternatives, cheaper alternatives. And we saw that happen right before our eyes, where, even internally, like households think of, like, they start to look at everything that they spend money on and start to rank it on a scale of preference. Right. So the way to sometimes now talking about the reaction to that as a business or as a sales leader, or as a salesperson, or as a business owner, there's always a temptation to start to change things, start to raise prices, start to, raise targets for your team. But I think that the wise thing to do is to hold for as long as you can, understanding that this is what a lot of your competitors are going to do. They're going to start to, make knee-jerk reactions. They're going to start to raise prices. They're going to start to, cut expenditure, and sometimes in the area of people, right? So they say, oh, the sales team needs to be downsized. I find that in those times, I think pricing and product offering need to be looked at, but not from the lens of, how quickly do we raise prices. I think you have to look at it from the point of view of which customer
Most valuable, which ones represent more value for our salespeople to target. So if you had a multi-tier approach before, where you had very high value customers, and then you had a customer or a target base that was, sort of not as comfortable with your price, they will buy, but the sales cycle will be longer. What I would advise you to do is sort of laser focus on the people who find your solution to solve the biggest pain for them, and focus your sales efforts on those types of people. Another thing that I'll ask you to do is to sort of sometimes cut marketing spend, and focus on sort of a pricing tier that is easier for people to pay. So I'll give you a practical example. one of the companies that we worked with had only an annual plan and a 6-month plan. So that is 6. So I was saying that one of the companies that we work with at Tribe, what they did was when it became difficult for their customers, because we all felt what Nigeria was going through, they introduced a sort of stripped down version of their product, and then introduced a shorter subscription length. And many customers who had started to churn or who were going to churn were able to sort of downgrade to just the essentials that they needed for their business. The people who found their product to be the lifeblood of their own business, of course, could not churn, and they kept majority of their customers. So that's one of the things that I always ask founders to look at. It also always helps if you have these contingency plans, before things actually hit, before things actually go left. Just have a number of, what would we do in the event that this happens? So I don't know if that has answered your question, Israel, or
Yes,
if you want me to.
Yeah, it has. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so moving on with the conversation. So I think I want us to touch point on customer relationship. Mr. Kolawole, you already talked about that when you were concluding, or when you answered the first question that I directed towards you. So you talked about partnership. You also talked about customer relationship. Now, particularly within the financial industry, let me put it that way. Being able to maintain, particularly when we're looking B2C now, maintaining customer relationship at a large scale, that can be quite difficult. Now, looking at large scale customer relationship and being able to, ensure that, there is from, these customers were able to get recurrent buying, so we're able to get them to stay with us, and we're able to get them to keep using the product or keep using the services. Now, what are the best strategies that you have employed to be able to drive that kind of relationship at a large scale, so that customer, you're able to have a great relationship with them, you're able to get them to stay as loyal customers, there's recurrent buying from them, and revenue is able to still grow, even if because you already talked about how the economy has been tough on people, and despite the fact people are still buying things. So now, with all of the turbulence and all of the trials, what are the strategies that you think are great or are best to be able to manage customer relationship, looking at long-term results?
Yeah, thank you. Right. So I think the first thing, and yes, Tayo mentioned that when he was speaking earlier. So two critical things, right, that a businessman should worry about, or maybe stay awake all night thinking about. The first thing is you need to have a compelling product or service. Then the second thing is it's not enough to have that compelling product. You have to get it across to final consumer doorstep, right? Otherwise, there are a lot of companies today, producing top-notch, compelling products, but they are not doing pretty well with sales. Why? Because there's a gap somewhere. There's a communication gap. The end user he can access that product, or he can access the service, and I think we have. That is more like the major issue we have in the market. It's not more of whether the product is compelling or not, but more of a gap, marketing gap, communication gap, and all that. So I'll attempt to, share, some of my, experience on what I think companies can do to bridge that gap, right? So after, ensuring that, okay, the product is compelling, we need to continue to also innovate. We need to continue to innovate because customer taste is never consistent. It keeps changing, right? And of course, if you want to retain the customers that we currently have in our books, then we need to continue to up the game. We need to follow them and ensure that on a weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, there's something extra, that we're adding to whatever product that we have. That is one. Two, sales. Talking about the sales bit. And I like when Tayo was speaking. Someone like me too, if you ask me, because a lot of us try to shy away from the fact that we're salespeople. Everybody is a salesperson. You're a salesperson. You must be selling something. You must be selling something. So either you're doing that informally or you're doing it formally. So when I started my career too, I was never interested in doing sales. It has always been product management, project management, right? But at some point, we found out that the most critical part of the entire circle, business circle, is the sales. Because the salesperson is the mouthpiece of the customer in a meeting or, on every table. So you might not have the opportunity to interact with consumers, end users. But when you have the sales people on the table or in a meeting, they can tell you what is working, what is not working. They can share market insights with you, what competition is doing. They can give you insights that will help the product team to go back, rethink the product, come up with some enhancements or features that will make it more competitive or more compelling, right? So everybody is a sales person, to start with. And sales has gone from the conventional way that we're familiar with. You hired someone, you put the person on a salary or whatever, and there's this popular adage in from the West where I come from. Let me see if I can interpret it. In Yoruba, they said ogata owalaru omape. So what that means is whether a businessman sells or not, a laborer will get his full wages, right? So if you have a salesperson working with you and you put the person on the salary, right, it probably will not matter whether the person has met his target for the month, for the year, for the day or not. Salary gets paid. And that was my experience working in Stanbic, First City, Monument Bank, First Bank. It was when I got to Moniepoint that I saw, a different picture entirely. So if you look at what banks are doing, there are people they call relationship managers. There are thousands of them, RMs, account managers, relationship managers. So these guys, their duty mainly is to go out and acquire new customers, go look for deposits, sell bank products to customers. In my understanding, working in that industry, everybody get paid at the end of the month. So whether you have been able to sell something or not, you get paid, right? Yeah, you could go for NPR, what they call performance, monthly performance review, and they can shred you, accuse you and, talk down on you and all that you're not meeting your target. But I know most people will still get paid. But if you flip to what the fintechs are doing, they have a very expansive sales team that are not necessarily staff. They are associates. These guys are on contract, they are on commission. And what that means is no sales, no payments, right? Which is the reason why a lot of them, they have a very lean cost line, right? And they can engage in a price war. If you talk about price war in Nigerian market today, fintechs, any day, anytime, they will beat the traditional banks to it. Why? Because they don't have every set of costs. The office building, branches are not there. My days in First Bank was having like 750 branches. Cost of maintaining those branches, the building, the human being, the staff you're gonna keep, right? So in those banking hall, so the overhead is always very huge, which will also be factored into the product pricing. So typically, if you see a product from a bank and you compare with a similar product from the fintech space, you find out that the fintech is a bit more pocket friendly. Transfer, for example, if you're using maybe OPay app or PanPay or Moniepoint out to initiate a transfer, I can bet you that the charges will not be as high as what maybe a GT Bank or any bank will charge you. So it is what it is. And the reason is very simple. It's because the model they are running are quite different. So for the non-conventional sales team, the model that I've seen that is scaling, everywhere. If you have sales team in a contract term, not like full-time employment, and you strike an agreement with them to pay commission. That commission payouts, again, to you as a business person, you're only paying from what you have earned. So it's a different model entirely, to where you just have people, they come to the office, whether they are selling or not, you continue to incur expenses, paying salary. So for those on commission, when they sell two, they earn commission on two. When they sell 2,000, they earn commission on 2,000. And what that does is, number one, it takes away the option of micromanaging a team, right? So you figure out that everybody is loyal first to their pockets. So if I know today that even if I stay awake all night, right, working for my boss, for my company, it won't necessarily change my salary at the end of the month. Yes, I can earn a promotion maybe after a period of time, but for the time being, I get to earn the same thing. So that can, in a way, discourage people from thinking out of the box or putting in their best, as compared to when I know that if I stay awake as an entrepreneur, think like a business owner myself, not just a salesperson alone, and I go all out to increase my sales today or tomorrow, immediately my commission will also go up, arithmetically or geometrically, or in the same proportion. If that is the thinking, then you see that the attitude will change almost immediately, right? So I learned that, during my, stay with Moniepoint. And I mean, that model has really, really helped to scale. And beyond that, if you look at sales today, you look at sales as a driver, sales, you use it to drive relationship management, right? So if you have a salesperson, beyond just getting the deal, beyond acquiring the customer, you have to also ensure that you continue to engage, have a good rapport with the customer, understand their pain points, ensure those things are attended to promptly. Make sure that you have good relationship with such customer. That is one way of retaining them. That's one way of winning off competition. Very, very important. And the second thing is to look at sales as a driver of, apart from using it to drive relationship management, you're using it to drive revenue, which we're all familiar with. You use it to also drive product enhancements. I spoke about that before now. If you have distribution associates or the sales team going out engaging with customers, definitely they will come back with feedback. What is working, what is not working, recommendation, right? So they can always team up, collaborate with product team to discuss, to review the product and come up with some form of improvement that will help them to continue to retain their market share. And of course, sales, you can also see it as a driving force for market insights. Market insights apart from what you are doing as a company, your sales people can share, market reaction with you on what to expect, government policy, what other competitors are doing, pricing review. And from there, they can also start suggesting, new products, new services based on, market reaction to, the existing product. So if you look at sales, holistically, not just, using it to drive revenue. If you look at it holistically, then and you collaborate with product team, other key people, it will be easier to, to use it to continue to ensure that the product remain compelling and you're able to retain your existing customers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a lot of value. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Tai, I want to ask you, almost the same question, but now I want to just combine uh, uh, customer relationship and retention. Knowing that in your own sector or in sectors you work, particularly education, where we can say, okay, for fintech, it could be possible that transactions will still happen one way or the other. But then we're in education or edtech, where there are times where people could just say, okay, let us forego this and try to survive, and we can come back to this. Now, for you, with your own experiences, what are the best strategies that have worked for you, particularly in those industries that people could choose not to maybe buy right away and it will not affect them, or they could just say, oh, okay, let's take a pause on this. Even in SaaS, where maybe businesses could say, for example, where businesses are away from moving away from uh, Google, and they're trying to try other options like Zoho that is accepting Nigerian naira instead of USD. So those businesses where it could be uh, uh, users or customers could decide that they could just let's hold off on this and move on to something else for now. So for you, having played in this industry, this sectors already, what are the best customer strategies that you've used that has worked, and how has this been able to help you drive customer retention, um, you know, at the long term?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Israel. So there are a few things. Some of them are more on a business leadership level, so cross-functional. Some of them are more on a sales, marketing, customer success level. So let me talk about the first one. The first one is to build the best possible product with the customer in mind. If you build a product that solves a customer's pain, then you are more than halfway to keeping that customer. You have become a part of their life. Like they can almost not do without you. That's the first thing. So you need to continue to reiterate your product. The second thing is that as you do that, you need to stay in constant communication with that customer. Whether they are happy or not, whether they are giving you trouble or not, you need to continue to stay top of mind. So as you're solving problems for them, you have to almost continue to remind them that, hey, this problem, this feeling of peace that you have, it's partly because of the work that my product does, right? You have to continue to have them tell you what the pain is, what their worries, what their future worries are, because even though you're solving a problem today, something might change tomorrow. So those are the first couple of things that I would do. The second level, which I say is on a sales, marketing, customer relationship level, is that you have to start finding lookalikes of your happiest customers. Like what are the things that they have in common? What are the pains that they have? And start to make case studies out of them. This is maybe marketing's job or customer success's job. What are the things that they say to us? What are the alternatives that they consider or that they considered when we're selling to them? And you have to start to use this as kind of like a defense mechanism, or even an attacking tool where when you go into the market and you try to sell, you can quickly say, listen, this is a great customer because they look like this and this and this customer that have found us happy for the last couple of years. Another thing that you can do is offer something in return for early renewals. So think about a customer, for instance, has to make a decision on renewal in December, right? You don't know what's going to happen in December. You don't know where the dollar is going to be. You don't know anything that's going to happen. But if the customer is really, really happy today, one of the tactics that I've seen to work is to say, listen, because you're happy today, do you want to activate this 20% discount, for instance, to renew your subscription today? To essentially extend your subscription today. I've seen many businesses, argue against this position and say, oh, but I don't want to give a 20% discount. My margins are already tiny. What can potentially happen is that at the end of the year, the customer is still happy and they pay, right? You're good. But what can also potentially happen is that at the end of the year, the customer is still happy, but they don't pay because the economy has taken a further hit. Another thing that can potentially happen at the end of the year is that there's competition, right? And maybe it's that, their pricing is cheaper, their product is better, the customer has, found something else other than you, and you don't get that money. So you have to time your sort of collections to when you're, at least with each particular customer, so when your NPS score is the highest, right? And generally speaking, and now this is the final part, and maybe this is customer success. Generally speaking, what you want to become is an advisor to your customers. You want to be close enough to your customers that you are an advisor to them, just as they are an advisor to you. So I'll give you an instance. So today, a customer forwarded me a screenshot of an email where the competition was introduced to them. So my company's competition was introduced to the customer, and they sent me a screenshot and said, "Hey, look at these guys. They're trying to take us from you." And that did two things for me, right? First of all, it put that competition within my radar. I can now start to look at them and say, hey, who are these guys? What are they doing? But it also told me that right now that customer is loyal to me, right? Because I have their money for a number of months in advance, but I now need to pay attention to what would make them sort of switch from me. But this happens because we've built a relationship, right? So I think that is those are some of the things that you can do in terms of like just tactics to keep customers with you, keep them renewing and paying you even in the midst of all of these challenges that we've had. Education is just to finish off. I'll just say give an example on something that I said earlier, which is that you have to show them how you are helping them. So education is one of the things that African parents will always invest in, right? But this investment is only to the point where they are seeing the results. So a child might be doing well in school. He has a bunch of different apps that he uses. The child is doing well in school, but the parents cannot draw a direct line between all of the different apps. They just know that whenever it comes, he has 2 or 3 different things that he uses. that app, that company has to show the parents the amount of impact that they are making. Otherwise, the parent will say, well, I'm paying 1 million naira a term for this child. That should be good enough. We don't need all of this extracurricular or supplementary tools. But you need the parent and maybe even the child to be able to say, oh, this one helps me the most in this subject that I struggle with the most. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I would do. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very insightful. So one more question that I have, and then we can go right to asking everyone their questions. So if you have questions or you like to ask our panelists questions, we're approaching that point where you can ask a question. So you can start typing out or you can write it down. Once it is time, you can raise your hand so that you can ask your question. So I would just like to close out with question on partnership. So Kolawole, you already mentioned, I talked around partnerships and how partnerships are great for driving sales. I was in a conversation recently, and someone was saying, okay, partnerships should be looked at a particular stage of the business. For example, the person was saying that maybe we shouldn't focus on partnerships if you are a startup and you're just starting out, and especially if you do not have anything tangible to offer to the other organization, and more or less like they're doing you a favor. So instead of just doing partnership, you go ahead to acquire or start eating the streets, or you start looking to acquire your own clients, or then you gain traction before you can move ahead to focusing on partnership. So I want to hear from, or would like to get from your own personal experience. Um, what are the at what stage do you think a business should start leveraging partnership as a viable tool for driving revenue and growth? Should it be at the early stage, or should it be at the later, or maybe when the business has gained traction? So I like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, so thank you. Two ways to look at this. Partnership is very critical to a business growth. Partnership, it's all about leveraging the skills, the talent, the reputation, the spread of other people, other companies, or just piggybacking on achievement of other companies. So again, you really would not need to go through what they went through to achieve some of those things. And I think it's more beneficial to startup or smaller firms. By the time you become a systemic entity, at that point in time, everybody wants to collaborate with you, everybody wants to partner with you. So you're now at a position where you decide who you partner with. But for a startup, of course, it's more of I'm not like out there. People don't know much about me, right? Even though I have a fantastic product, right? So it makes sense to just join force with bigger platforms, bigger companies, to scale at that level. So the way we see it, if you are a smaller player and you want to partner with a bigger player, of course, it's to your advantage as a smaller firm. And I'm gonna give you a practical example. So there's something they call, storefronts. If you have a fantastic product today and you want to reach the global market, right? Amazon is a good example. There I've seen people, dumping their product on Amazon. And what that means is you can be a local player and have a global reach. So your products can travel, continents. Your product can travel across continents, and it helps to deepen the market penetration, to scale pretty fast, which is what they call the online part of sales. Now, sales you can look at it from offline and online point of view. So online, you want to go fully digital, you want to collaborate with other players so you can scale your game. So if you ask me, partnership should be one of the critical things that early stage business should be considering in their early stages. It's very, very important. So it will help them to scale faster. They can leverage the the achievements, the strengths of those that have gone ahead of them or the bigger players in the market. And we've seen a lot of that in in Nigerian market space. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, Style, just to close out on this, for you in the spaces where we have worked, how have you been able to use this, like use partnership to be able to drive revenue and growth? How effective has that been for you?
Partnerships have been very, very effective. And your initial question was, at what stage should the company do it? I think at every stage. At every stage. One of the reasons why partnerships, why we struggle with partnerships in this part of the world is that many times it's one-sided. There's one party that sort of benefits much more in a partnership. But the way that it should work is that there's an exchange, right? Partner A wants to achieve something which may or may not be commercial, and partner B wants to achieve something, and both parties can do it by leveraging each other's strengths. I think the struggle is always that when companies get big in this part of in this country, when companies start to grow faster than everybody else, they look at everybody else and say, there's not much you can offer me, because they think of it only from the commercial lens. The best partnership that I've seen work is where one partner, usually the more dominant one, looks at it and says, listen, we're maybe not going to, this partnership in of itself as a program will not make us $100 million, right? But it does something for our customers. It brings our customers closer to a level of value that we could not provide by ourselves, right? And when that has happened, it has really, really worked. And you have to think about it long term. That's the other thing that I always advise people to do. Think about it long term. Don't think, how much will I make in this month where the partnership is announced? And it's like, think more, what brand recognition does this give us? What does this say about our brand? If I am a fintech and I send a message today to all of my customers saying, you can now access education for your kids at 15% at 70% of the original cost, because my partnerships team went and negotiated with this education company on behalf of you and your children. What does that say about me to them? That's the way that I like to think about those things. So yeah, hugely successful when it has worked. But the work to get it to happen, I think, is what chases people away from it sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So we're at the point to take questions. If you have any question, you can raise your hand so that I can call you. I see that Sowole already typed out, so I'll just go ahead to read the question. Thank you for making this session happen. Thanks to Tayo and Tola for the time and insights so far. I currently lead the business development team of the SaaS startup that's providing businesses with a call center solution and business number. My question is, 95% of our prospects are not purchasing right away. how do you advise we prioritize our marketing spend to cater to all prospects? If only about 5% are purchasing now, and 95% takes about 3 months in total. Okay, so I think I will allow Mr. Kaya go first. You've done SaaS already, then I will allow Mr. Kola also go at the question. So let's start with you, Mr. Kaya.
Yeah, thanks, Israel. I think that the beauty of SaaS, and especially early stage, is what Richard is sort of finding out now. Your sales cycle. So selling is not about you; it's about the buyer. Buyers will buy when they will buy. They buy for their reason. They buy when they can afford it. There's a decision-making period. You know the sales funnel, right? There's a point when someone is in consideration, and there's a point when they've made a decision. Now, partly because of the way the company is, but also because of the way decisions are made and the bureaucratic process, people get to a yes, we will buy this thing. This is what we want. We have picked you. But the time between that and when the money actually hits your account is another thing, right? And people will say, "Oh, follow up, do this, do that." But if the money is not there, the company has not. It's in their budget, but the revenue has not entered for them to spend. There's really nothing you can do, and you can actually annoy them by following up. But to answer your question about how you should think of marketing, is that if your sales cycle is 3 months, and it's 95% of people that are even buying in those 3 months, or that are buying immediately rather, it means marketing should be well ahead of sales in terms of they acquire customers today. So this is June. The cohort of customers that marketing acquires for you today, or that your salespeople acquire by themselves, will close in August, right? The end of August, the third month. Your sales projections must keep that into consideration. Like your company's sales leadership must consider that when they ask you, "Oh, Richard, what will our sales numbers for June look like?" The answer to that question is in your lead generation for 2 months ago. If your funnel was not full, if the top of your funnel was not rich enough 2 months ago, you cannot expect anything to close this month. So the work that you're doing this month is actually for August, not even July. That is, if your entire company agrees to that this is what we're seeing, this is our sales cycle, then two things that you have to do is fill the top of funnel, but also now start to look for tactics and strategies to shorten your sales cycle. Right? There are many different things that you can do. You can say, actually, there are very many different things, and I just want to talk about one. Is that if a company is currently using something today, this is not something you see happen a lot in this part of the world, but if they're using something today, and maybe their subscription ends in August, that's why they would only wait till August to pay you. What I've seen some very aggressive companies do is essentially buy them out of that contract. Right? So they're saying, we have 2 more months on this thing that we paid plenty money for. We cannot lose it. We'll wait till we finish. So you would say to them, I would pay you that money back, essentially. The 2 months subscription for this thing that you're waiting to end, I will pay you that money back. The reason it makes sense to do, the only situations where this makes sense to do is where the value that customer is giving you, or just the fact that you already have them on your books as a customer, will be offset by the 2 months of subscription that they would have paid to these guys that you are now essentially reimbursing them. But there's no shortcuts to this thing sometimes, especially at an early stage company. There's no shortcuts. You just have to, even knowing that your sales cycle is 3 months is a win for you. Like, you now know you can now start to deal with that, as opposed to just going, "Oh, things are not closing. We're doing all we can." Or worse still, you're now blaming salespeople. Salespeople are not working, they cannot close, they've not closed anything in 3 months. Well, software sales many times takes longer than that, depending on the size of the ticket. Yeah. So Richard, if I've not answered your question properly, maybe you can ask again.
Yeah.
Thank
Richard,
you so much.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, Israel. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tayo. That answers my question.
Okay, right. Okay, so I think I will just allow Mr. Kola to also share his perspective on this so that we can have a balance here as well.
Yeah, I think well said already, right? Sales, I mean, take it or leave it, is the language sales understand is consistency, right? An average customer is not convinced after the first attempt. That is just what it is. I mean, you ask yourself, some of the things you bought, whether it's a car or a property or whatever it is, you know, some of us are like, I don't know, we're difficult to convince. We're more like a doubting Thomas. So we want to be sure. We probably want to check, you know, reviews about people using it. We want to be sure, okay, this really work for us. Or in some cases, maybe people just, they want the software, they want the solution, and there's just no budget for it currently. I know some companies, you don't do impulse buying. Okay, if a customer or a marketer or a salesperson walks up to you today and you like the product, you like the service, you still need to, you know, run the internal, you know, paper approval, paper processing. You know, that process has to run, secure necessary approval before you can start placing order for purchase and all that. And I mean, that can also, you know, be part of the concern you're seeing here, right? So if you take a look at the data, right, I'm sure the answer is embedded, you know, right there. If you can double click on the 5% and see, I mean, are there any, you know, similarities or things different about these 5% compared to other 95%? Maybe they don't have anything they are using at the moment, right? Or maybe they are more eager or more desperate as compared to, you know, the other 95. But again, just to let you know that you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. The fact that the other huge percentage will usually patronize you in a circle or treatment. I mean, for me, I think marketing is working and the company is also doing well. It would have been a different ball game if you're saying that, you know, conversion is just 5% and you don't get to see anything from the remaining 95%. Then that becomes a challenge. But if they come back after 3 months or thereabout to say, okay, yes, I'm ready, I want to get this item, then I think, I mean, it's working, marketing is working, and you're good. It's just to see how you can intensify that. So I think you should continue with the marketing activities. If the focus is to target all prospects, like you mentioned, if target is to focus on all prospects, but of course, if you want to cut down on your marketing spend and you want to have a bit of focus, maybe you can study the 5% data and see, you know, their, you know, characteristics, and then maybe subsequently you focus on, you know, pushing you know, your marketing activities directly more at people like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think Richard.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Tayo.
Great.
That was very
Right.
yeah.
So Solomon is asking, what is the distinction between partnership and collaboration for startups? I think I would allow Mr. Kola go at that.
Well, yeah, so yeah, partnership, collaboration, like, you know, essentially saying that this, I can't do this alone. I need to work with other people. I need to leverage other people's skills, strengths. I need to there's something they call economy of scale in economics, right? So it's synergy. Yeah, the main objective is synergy, right? But looking at from legal point of view, partnership is a stronger word because you need to have an agreement. You need to have more like terms and condition. And in some cases, people look at partnership like from a point of view of this business is ours, co-funding together, maybe your investment is 10%, mine is 20, 50, as the case may be. So you can be active partner, dormant, passive, right? As the case may be. But collaboration does not necessarily need to have like a strong, contract or an agreement. You just have people, that have similar interests and, coming together to, to pursue an objective. Yeah. So if you are a business person and you want to be more formal, then maybe partnership will be more suitable. You have agreements, you have contract terms, everything in place, but you can collaborate with people without necessarily going, too deep. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Tayo, you want to maybe add something to that?
No, so in my opinion, they are exactly the same thing. I think we use those words interchangeably. In my part of those things, we always just talk about collaboration and partnership to mean the same thing.
Thank you so much. All right. Any other question? If you would like to ask the question, you can raise your hand so that we just take maybe one or two more. I don't think we can take written questions anymore. So if you'd like to just go straight by asking your question, you can just do raise your hand and I will call you. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Good evening,
All
Israel.
right.
Good evening to Kola and Tayo. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. I want to ask if each of the facilitators can respond. I would like to know what your toughest sale was. Like what was the hardest customer to acquire, and what lessons you learned from that entire um that entire yes, thank you.
Okay. So I think I will allow Mr. Tyre go first.
All right, just to be sure, the question is, what is the toughest ever sale?
Yes, the toughest sale
Yes,
you ever
yes.
had to close.
Huh. There are a couple that come to mind. Okay, I think that it would have to be. I was selling software to one of the big four consulting companies. We started talking to the sale started with the Nigerian team. That was like I thought that we were selling to the Nigeria team. So it turned out for the Nigeria office to buy software that does what it was that I was selling. They needed to the global offices needed to be involved. This software had something to do with people management. So the people office was in a separate continent. Because it had something to do with people, it also then had to go through their data security and compliance teams. Those ones were in another continent as well. As we started to to do that, we realized that they were not going to buy because at the time the company did not have a certain security rating. So I then started to take courses in cybersecurity and information security management. The sales process took an entire a year and a few months actually, which was enough time for me to complete those courses for the company to get the certification. But it was hard because this was in the middle of COVID. So when the lockdown, we're all working from home. Um, I was having to wake up in the middle of the night to make meetings, people from Australia, people from like many different continents. I'm not even kidding. And every time we would talk, I was able to like expand. Like I had to make a decision between like we have the deal, this is the size. But when you talk to somebody in there, you then find out that actually there's an opportunity to expand the deal by a bit. So for instance, we started with Nigeria, then the Ghana office heard about it and they wanted to talk. So the deal expanded from Nigeria to Ghana. Eventually, it was West Africa and then East Africa. And then it was essentially we were trying to sell to their entire Africa business. So at the end of it, we signed the contract. Like I'm not describing it well enough, but what I learned from that was as a salesperson, or if you're involved, whether you're not a professional salesperson, but you're involved in the sales process, it's not about you. There are ways, or there's a way that the buyer buys. There are internal bureaucracies, internal processes that you must follow, that they must go through. Like it's either they do it or they don't buy from you. For some businesses, it's straightforward. Like we've done big deals where it was really just a phone call. And over the phone, the person will give their word and say, yeah, we've been looking for this thing. You described it well enough. Maybe there are a few things to take care of, but I'm sure that we're going to do this. We'll sign the contract. But that's their process. So I think that it will help. It always helps at the start of a sales interaction for you to have information about, how do you make decisions like this internally? Who would typically need to be involved in these types of decision, and they will tell you. If you ask these questions, people will tell you, so you can prepare yourself. You can brace yourself. If you don't have that much time or that much bandwidth to drive a sales process that's that complex, you can decide by yourself to say, listen, I'm not ready to sell to this account. This is not my company's strategy today. My company wants deals that will close in 6 weeks. Maybe that means smaller customers. Or, I've just taken a new job. The clock is ticking. I have a 3-month probation period. I cannot necessarily go into this today. But at least if you can then go to your team and say, hey guys, this is the situation. These are the options that I have. Are you guys willing to back me? Do you have the time for us to pursue? Do you have the resources for us to pursue this? And they might tell you, listen, even if you close that account, we cannot serve them. They want this and this and that. So let's just leave it. Those are some of the lessons that I learned.
Thank you so much for that, sir. That was very insightful. That sounded like a lot, but it's like the higher the risk, the higher the reward. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, if I could add one or two words. So when it comes to sales, I think two set of customers that we need to be wary about. Number one, our immediate circle, talking about friends and family, and secondly, customers with existing, using a competitor's service or products. So those two category of customers are difficult to win. But if you can get them, they can also become your biggest advocates. They stick because if you're talking about friends and family, these are people that they practically know everything about you, and right, they are difficult to convince, but we can convince them. Yeah, they go all the way with word of mouth, creating awareness and all that. For existing customers, clients, they are not novice. They have expectations about the way the product should work or how the service should run, because they've always been using it. Of course, they've been getting it from a different player, right? And if whatever you're putting on the table is not delivering something extra, of course, there won't be any reason for them, switching anyway. So to convince people like that, of course, one has to go the extra mile. I remember my days in Moniepoint. So, right, there were big merchants, corporate merchants, already in bed with top banks like Zenith, First Bank, GTB, and the likes. Right now, if you have some of our guys, approach some of these merchants, practically we could give you a digital payment to, POS, credits, that are more effective, reliable, better than whatever it is you're getting from these banks. But the truth is, if you talk about the reputation, yes, we're not there, right? So some of them, what they look at is, I can I can downgrade from a full-fledged commercial bank to a microfinance bank. I can do that. I can do that. So, winning some of those conversations back in those days can be very, very, difficult, right? Because those customers are, trying to compare. They are trying to, be sure that they are not settling for less in any way. So, for me, I think those are two set of customers that can be quite tough, to convert. But for those that are new, maybe first time using the product or service, yeah, it might be easier to convert those ones. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Dono, I don't know if that answered your question. I'm not sure if I pronounced your name well. Sorry about that.
Yes, you did, sir. You did, and more. The example was very. It was very interesting
Right.
to listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking. Okay, any other questions before we just one more? If you have a question, we could just take one more and close. Okay, going once, going twice, and it's gone. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining today's